Good evening, everyone. My name is Hui Trinh. I'm the Director of Admission at Reed College. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our parent panels. This evening, you will hear directly from four parents or four pair of parents of current students about their experiences at Reed, the decision to apply to the decision when they were making that decision as a family, how their students have adjusted, what life at Reed is like from a parent's perspective. Tonight's goal is simple. You get an honest, candid insight. Also with some questions, and then we're going to open up to your questions towards the end. If you have questions for any of our families, please text to me directly. You can do it asking everyone, or you can text me on private as well, and I will ask the panelists those questions. So with that, I would love to do a quick introductions of the panelists we have here. If we can have, obviously, we can see your name, but your name, the name of your students, what year they are, what they are studying at Reed, and where you're from. And I'm going to start with Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Jeffords, and I am the mom of Griffin, who is a sophomore at Reed. And we did early decision, of course, and it was probably the best decision we ever made. We're from the San Francisco Bay Area, and Griffin is studying psychology and music.
Right. Ken and Jane.
Hiya, we're Ken
And Jane Bradbury.
from Iowa City, Iowa. And our daughter Anna is double majoring in math and dance.
And she's a senior this year. And she started out doing math and then added on dance because she really enjoys dance.
Thank you. Jenna?
Yeah, hi, I'm Gina Kim, and I'm from Seattle. My daughter, Izzy Oakes, is a second year student at Reed, and she is studying history and comparative race and ethnic studies.
Awesome. Thank you. Genia?
Hi, I'm Jenia Strom, and my daughter Annie is a first-year student at Reed, and she is studying theater and sociology, and I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Thank you. So with that, I'd love to just start with the initial questions of like, what initially drew your students to Reed? How did they discover Reed? And yeah, let's start from there. Anyone can chime in first.
I could talk. Anna, basically, I don't really even know how she discovered Reed. She found it on her own. She was looking for some place other than we live in Iowa City, Iowa, which is diverse for and progressive for a Midwestern town, but she wanted something more so. And she saw Reed and she basically fell in love with it online. And when we got there, it was tenfold. She absolutely adored it. She applied to 5 places and she only wanted to go to Reed. So
Yeah, we Jane took her there on a visit to see the place. It's the only college she wanted to visit, and
I couldn't get her to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
I begged her, let's go to places and look at other places.
there are closer places, but that's the one she wanted. So we said, okay, it's far away, but it's worth it. So.
And she was admitted to all of them, but she really did like Reed a lot, so loved it.
Oh, goodness. We went on the whole world tour of colleges and looked everywhere. And Griffin really wanted somewhere, oddly enough, that didn't have brick buildings, which is hilarious because we behind you, the old door block, of course, is brick, but a lot of Reed is not. Because they just didn't want that sort of like stuffy feel. I think they associated that with red brick buildings in New England. We don't really have brick buildings in San Francisco. But then also just the people was the real draw, and specifically they were also looking for something after a very intense and sort of like just intellectual high school. they wanted something that still had the intellectual draw, but had like a softer side to it. So the no grades policy, which is, of course, like there are grades, but you don't see them while you're going through the class, was very much appealing to them. So they actually went through the junior and senior scholar programs, which are great for affinity groups. If you just need, if your student needs a little bit more of that, like, hey, will I fit in there? Are there people that look like me or are like me or whatever? It was a really wonderful situation for them to do. And then they applied early decision and got in.
I'll go next. I think that when Izzy was kind of trying to come up with a college list, she had a very different approach than her brother did. Her brother didn't really know what he wanted. He applied to kind of like a wide variety of schools of all different sizes, and it really was a harder thing for him to go through. But Izzy had a very specific idea about what she wanted. Kind of, she wanted to stay in the Northwest. She wanted to have like a small liberal arts college. We talked a lot about the things that she liked and didn't like about high school, and she really wanted a place that would be really challenging for her academically. Didn't put like a great emphasis on like varsity sports and things like that, but also had like really easy access to cultural, events and a diversity of students. And so we came up with a short list of places. She applied to just a couple on the East Coast, but wasn't really considering them seriously because she wanted to kind of stay in the Northwest, and decided that kind of from the beginning. And when she visited Reed, um, I think she just really liked it. She felt at home. The tour guides were really funny and very amiable, very easy to get along with. She loved the fact that as they were walking across campus, they said hello to multiple people. It just seemed like it was a good community, and definitely something that she was kind of looking for, something supportive, intellectual, kind of small and nurturing.
I feel like what I'll say about Annie kind of echoes some of what we've already heard, but I think one of the things that drew Annie to Reed was the combination of it being the small liberal arts school, but in that urban setting. So having the access to what Portland has to offer, but also being that small liberal arts school. And when she walked onto campus the first time, it just, for her, she felt like, well, this is it. This is exactly where I want to be. She'd read about it, but getting to be there, it was, everything just felt right. And Annie tends to be a pretty analytical person and really likes to make decisions in a very methodical way. And this is one of the first times I saw her just really trust her gut. And she hasn't gone back since she made that call. And she did early decision, and she has been so thankful that she did that. She said it really helped her to enjoy her senior year in a way that she watched her friends not be able to do, because she knew what she was doing, and that made a big difference for her senior year.
Yeah, well, if I can add to that, though, I mean, I think the decision to early decision or not to early decision is a really tough one. And I don't know about the rest of you, but we definitely had some family drama over it. We'll call it drama, but there were some fights. And at the end of the day, the problem is, like, yeah, Reed is totally lovable, especially if you're a Reed kind of student. That's absolutely true. But there are also other places that are lovable. And so, particularly that sort of Pacific Northwest liberal arts college vibe, there are others around. And so our real struggle became, is it Reed or is it somewhere else? Like, yes, early decision's probably a good idea, but what's the right call? And if you haven't thought about this as parents, I really recommend you do. And it sounds horrible on that. And I'm going to go with Genia's analytic thing, but we made a spreadsheet, and I did it on a flip chart to make it less spreadsheety. You know what I mean? But we just sort of said, okay, what are the things you really care about college? Like, it's got to be warm. It's got to be not too pressured. It's got to, it's got to be in the Pacific Northwest, or whatever it was. But like, we went through, and honestly, we let everybody in the family, well, that was involved, like their older sibling wasn't involved in the decision, because they had also gone through like Gina's, they had also gone through like the whole wait until the last day in April to make up your mind kind of process. But we all got to put in categories, right? Like, are you going to have really intellectual peers? Was mine. Like, right? Are you going to have peers that will make you think deeper? Um, are there no brick buildings? Was one of Griffin's, right? But we went through and made that spreadsheet, and at the end of the spreadsheet, we kind of totaled up the high, medium, lows, and did the number count and whatever. And then I immediately, instead of like looking at the spreadsheet, looked at them and said, "Okay, how does that feel?" And they were like, "I think it feels okay." And I really think like you might need to do that with you. I have other friends going through this decision right now. You might need to do that because you might be having like that, but mom or dad, I don't want to make that decision and then I'm stuck with it. Like I don't get to find out who else wants me. And it's a hard thing to do, to say I'm putting it all in on this. And you could apply for EAs at the same time to see if you get in anywhere else, which helps a little bit in terms of like that FOMO of I'm going to miss hearing from other people that think I'm awesome. But at the other hand, you are making a commitment. So it's good to have the debate. I will tell you one last thing is Griffin, because there was a lot of fighting. A lot of like, you got to get your essays written now for early decision. And they came back to me in the middle of freshman year and said, "Oh my gosh, mom, I'm so sorry I gave you such a hard time. This was absolutely the best thing in the world for me. And I just want to thank you for like pushing me to make the decision." I was
Wow.
like, "You
So thank you so
knocked
much.
me over with a spoon."
Well, that's kind of like then this is a perfect segue to my next question is like what gave you guys the confidence that we was the right fit for your child, right? Because like it's not just their process. It's like you are entrusting some of the most one of the most precious persons in your life to our care for the next 4 years, right? What gave you the confidence that we was the right fit for your child?
I think one
For
of the
me, it was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll be quick. I think one of the things Annie felt very comfortable reaching out to people in the admissions office and to professors as she was trying to decide if she was going to apply. And people reached back to her very quickly, and she felt very comfortable engaging with them. And just the fact that she felt that comfort and attention from the get-go, just as she was even just considering things, and that attention and care for her when she was a prospective was just really amazing to me. And that made me feel like this is a place that is a caring place that is going to be watching out for people. That was, again, like when she was just in that perspective place. So that was a great first view for me as a parent.
So for me, I took Anna to Portland to visit Reed, and it had a whole feel to the campus that was just, I don't know, just really so intimate and friendly, but not too much so, and very I don't know, it just felt like the right place for me. It sounds very silly, but I'm a librarian, and I wanted to see if I could get a job and move to Portland to work at Reed and try and be a librarian. I just loved it. And I think Anna felt the same way. And she's always been very goal oriented all the way through high school. She knew exactly what she wanted. She had a strategy. So she would join band, and she would also do a sport because she wanted to meet a lot of groups and make sure that she would have good circles. And so she knew what she wanted. And it's kind of funny because it sounds like a lot of parents made, like, if you made spreadsheets and helped your kids, but my child she 100% knew that she really loved it. So it was a bit less pressure on me. And one of the hardest things for me was that Portland is so far away. I mean, it's a couple of 1,000 miles away, and it makes it harder to visit her and harder for her to come home for something special for the family or something. And even though that was really hard for us, we don't have any regrets because she really does love it, and she wants to stay in the Northwest. Um, and on the tour, the people we spoke to, the people that worked there, I asked questions, And, you know, if the atmosphere was good, if they loved working there, and just everything was 100% positive, other than that it was so far away. So
Yeah, I think that for my daughter Izzy, like I mentioned before, we kind of had like kind of like a short list of things that were, you know, must-haves, and Reed really just kind of ticked all the boxes. And I think that for me, I had a colleague at work who graduated from Reed, and I personally feel like that's one of the best advertisements you can give, is to, you know, is to have your you know, graduates go out into the world and show, you know, who they are. And this was a person who I felt like was very um, uh, you know, really smart, but also just, you know, really compassionate and a good person, and still spoke really highly of her experience at Reed. And she was kind of an atypical, you know, student, in that she came from a really, you know, tiny town in Alaska, you know, went to Reed, hadn't ever thought about going to college, but then totally felt like she fit in, you know, there. And so it just made me feel really reassured, I guess, that, you know, that Reed could be someplace that was um, really generous and opening, and, you know, and open to, you know, lots of different kinds of people. And I feel like in general, having gone through the process twice now with my older son and then with my daughter, I just feel like there are not a lot of guarantees with this. I mean, even I think that even if you do apply to school and it ticks off all your boxes, it can, in the long run, just not work out, you know, one way or another. And I feel like I've kind of told both my kids that sometimes it just takes a while to, you know, to adjust, but to kind of get to know the place, and to, you know, kind of see how it goes. It took my son like a couple of years before he, you know, really felt at home at his college. For Izzy, though, I think that given all of the things that she experienced, I feel like she felt at home right away, and didn't really have any, you know, second guesses or second thoughts about it at all. And that was extremely reassuring. I think that yeah, it was a very positive, a very positive thing. And the whole early decision thing, I have to echo, I think whoever said that about applying early and enjoying your senior year, totally, you know, totally agree with that. They could totally, you know, just really enjoy their classes, you know, participate in the whole senior year experience. And it was a good experience for us.
Thank you.
I was going to say
Um,
one thing on comfort level. I know, like, I can't help myself. I still look at the U.S. News and World Report rating things. I can't help. And I know it was like Reed admissions people always told us, hey, we cracked the code on those things and we refuse to play the game of the ratings thing. So you're going to have people say like, oh, what's Reed, you know, et cetera, because they haven't heard of it because it's not on the ratings list as high as some of the others. And I just always have to say, oh, it's the place that Steve Jobs went, you know. Um, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because it is such a lovely place. And I think I too had a friend, they were not a Reed alumni, but they had a kid at Reed at the same time. And they were telling me about their experience, and that kid had issues, that kid had problems. And what impressed me was what Reed did to help them through their problems, right? That was like, oh, okay. Because we really, Griff had a tough senior year, and honestly, not just was it good to relax in December to know that you were in, but it was like, I don't know where they would have been if they'd had to apply to a bunch of other schools through January and stuff like that. We had some health things going on where it was really nice, but I just knew that they would have the support and the care, and we even talked to like the medical people there and stuff like that, and they were so supportive and so helpful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Elizabeth. That's really touching. I'll ask one more early decision question that I'm going to ask about like non-ED stuff, because I think parents really want to know how your children are thriving at Reed, and what's that like. But the final question relating to ED is just like, were there concerns about committing to Reed early? You know, because that's a big commitment. I think one of you guys said that it's you don't get to compare other offers. How did you work through that as a family?
One thing I can mention is I don't know 100% if this is true, but we were under the impression that it's actually a little bit favorable for the financial aid, and if you do
Hmm.
go early. And that was going to be important for us, and Reed does have very nice financial aid. So I think that helped. In addition to the fact that Anna really wanted to go, that was part of it. And we wanted to support her decision. We're looking at the financial side as well and thinking this may work out well if she can get early admission and if it does help with the financial aid.
And that it's a little bit easier to get in. Is that still true? I mean, is that fair? You have a little bit of a leg up because you're saying, hey, I want Reed as much as Reed would want me.
Yeah,
I-
we had that impression as well.
And we didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can verify if that's really true or not for the parents at home, but we thought that might be the case.
I think that, you know, for Izzy, the only other school she got a chance to apply to was UW, because otherwise she didn't get a chance to put in her other applications because she got in early at Reed. But it was a big financial difference, you know, between going to the University of Washington and going to Reed. On the other hand, it would have been a totally different experience and completely contrary to what she went into the process, you know, wanting. So I think that, you know, for us, you know, we just really felt like, you know, having her be successful was really kind of contingent on being able to have the support, have the intellectual environment, have the professors and the teaching environment that would be able to really give her that kind of experience that you know that she could really appreciate. And being in a huge state school was just not going to be it, you know. And so I think that we were willing and we were lucky enough to be able to kind of agree to kind of take that on. And in the end, you know, we actually did get some, you know, monetary, you know, some grants from Reed. So it actually was not as bad as we thought it was going to be, because it actually turned out to be a little bit better than we thought. And but yeah, it was definitely worth it.
I feel like I would just be saying along the same lines. And I asked Annie just a little bit earlier what she had to say about this. And she said she emphasized being sure you're ready to take that risk, because it does feel like a big risk. And she said, you know, be ready to be disappointed, but also ready to commit to something that is a big thing. But whenever it is a big risk. It's a big chance, a big decision you're making about your life. But this, if you feel like it's the right one, it's worth taking that chance. And for her, she felt like it was the right chance to take. So doing the research ahead of time is what made her feel like it was the right choice.
Thank you so much for your honesties. And just a little bit of a clarification. So for us, you know, the admission rate for early decision is higher than the other rounds because, you know, the student is saying that they're, you know, Reed is their top choice. We have most capacities. In terms of financial aids, we also go out with very generous aid in early decision as well. Not necessarily that we give more aid than early actions or regular decisions, but you know, being honest, we do have a, you know, more capacities, right? So if you are applying in by time regular decision, for example, and you need a ton of financial aid, you know, we would have committed a much bigger chunk of our budget for early action and early decision. Not saying if you were admitted in regular decision, you wouldn't get grade 8. You would, you know, if you qualify for them. But then we have just fewer spots for that by the time we get to regular decision. So let me go to one of the questions that the parents asked. They'll love to just hear more about how your children have experienced the intellectual environments of friends outside of the classroom. I think, you know, Reed built in that discussion, that seminar, that, you know, really into all of our academic experience. But what is it like for your kids outside of classroom? Do they find that fulfillment, you know, with friends and peers, whether it's in, you know, the dorms, whether it's in, you know, clubs and activities? I love to hear what you guys have learned from your children.
Yeah, I so much. I actually had the blessing to go up there. I forget why I was in town for something else, and so I stopped by and I made dinner I made like a big lasagna for Griffin's pod of Trillium, which is one of the dorms people there. Like they had a really good set of, I don't know, 14 or 15 people that lived right in one little corner. I think it was like 3 West or something like that. And I got to just like hear the students talking to each other and be a little bit of a fly on the wall of mom on campus, without being too like, what are you studying? And, all those kind of things. And it was crazy. Not only they all had all these amazing quotes on their chalkboards outside of their rooms that were all like literary or intellectual. They were sitting there talking about math formula, like somebody was trying to figure something out for their physics assignment. And then we just sat there and ate dinner and they were just talking with each other. And sometimes it was just silliness or about going out for a party or collecting the campus safety people have these like little baseball cards that you can collect, and if you get the set of the entire campus safety, you go to the head of campus safety, and they give you a present. It was a knife. It was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little weird, but okay. It was, but Griffin thought it was really cool. And then they also talked about like some of them were working in clubs with sexual health on campus, and there was a bunch of them going climbing at the climbing gym the next day, and like there was just so much excitement about learning things and sharing things and putting quotes on walls and formulas on walls, and you're just sort of surrounded by this beautiful mind-esque kind of excitement about learning. And I think it goes with the teachers too. The first time I got a voice text from Griff that said like, "Oh my gosh, I was just in this class and this teacher came up with this new theory about anorexia and how it's tied to, blah, blah, blah." And they were just like, "I'm so excited. I can't wait to learn more about this." And I was just like, you just have that mom moment of like, yes, 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 they're excited about going to class and they're going to have a conversation with other students about it. That's exactly what you want for the college experience.
Thank you.
One of the things that we really liked that Anna became involved in, and she was just this past spring, she was one of her friends is in the theater department and is had to direct a play, and she was cast in that, and that was really a super cool experience for her because it's by Mindy Kaling wrote the play, and it's about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and how Good Will Hunting and how they came up with that and were lauded for it, even though they were very novice playwrights. And anyway, it's she just had such a great experience from that. Very it wasn't like immediately in her area. I mean, it wasn't math or dance, it was theater, but I found that Reed offered her other options and opportunities to do things like outside of her studies as well as within them. And that a lot of the students were doing really cool things that other students could get involved with as much as they wanted to. So that was really neat.
Yeah, that really doubles back on the college experience that we were just hearing about. This was one of the reasons we were happy with the choice of Reed, is we did get the sense that although a small school, it was going to give them plenty of opportunities to have the college experience. And Anna wants a certain thing in her career, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe she'll be something totally different. And so we were always aware of the fact that we didn't know what direction she was going to end up going, and Reed would give opportunities to do that.
Now, there were only two people in the play, and it was a really big highlight of her year, and a good experience too, just with public speaking and acting, and it was a great experience. So.
My daughter has just been there for what, 6 weeks? How long are we into the school year? 8 weeks. But I really enjoyed how the humanities course that all freshmen take. I think that just in terms of setting that expectation for the dialogue and discussion and the intellectual community. I know there was one day where she posted on Instagram a picture of her in the cafeteria, and all the kids were pointing at their watch. And I asked her, what was that about? And she said, well, we sent that picture to our professor to show them that we had started talking in class about, they were talking about the Iliad and something, and the discussion kept going. from class. They were talking about it in lunch. They stayed in the cafeteria talking about it. And the picture was at 6:08. And they talked about it all afternoon and through dinner. And so they were wanting to show the professor that this conversation kept going. And so that discussion and that excitement. And so all of the first year students are involved in this course. And it's just breeding that that environment that really sparks that curiosity, that conversation, and knowing that that's there. I think it really creates a wonderful place for that kind of community. So it's been a fun place.
And by the way, there was a question. Hume 110 is scary. Griffin was terrified of it. It's not. It just isn't. Like they were so terrified they were going to fail. I think they got like a B plus. So I'm not saying it was like their best ever, but it was really cool and they enjoyed so much of it and they didn't expect to.
I'll say that Izzy really liked Hume 110 a lot. She had a really good experience there, really enjoyed, talking with her professors, and I think it was a big kind of, guiding influence on her. And, she texted me earlier this year saying, I'm writing this paper and I am, connecting it with some of the things that I read in Hume 110. And she was just very excited, about that. So I think that, certainly kind of like intellectually, it's great. Having that ability to really develop relationships with your professors is great. She also just, I think, really got really close to some of the people on her wing in her dorm. And they're still, very close, to this day, and kind of, live near or, together right now. And they just kind of hang out. I think they play games. Like she brought back some games, to school. So they were playing like the Oregon Trail game and doing like other kinds of games. And she really enjoys thrifting and going to coffee shops. And Portland is just great for that kind of thing, and going to concerts. So it's certainly a very hardworking environment, but I think it's also a great place to just enjoy and to find lots of different interesting things to do.
And I think the next question we have is like, Reed is a small college. We're about 1,400. Like, has that ever felt limiting or too small for your students?
Certainly know that Anna has never complained about it. She's never said, I wish I were going somewhere bigger. And she has a lot of friends who went to bigger schools, and she has spent a lot of time with them, like when she comes home for break and they hang out together and chat and compare all of their experiences. And she's never had any problems with it. I mean, they have a lot of different places you can go around there. There's music that you can go to, and there's food trucks all around campus, and she loves that she can walk everywhere. She is happy that she has a car. So because she had some jobs she had one job that she did, that was off campus. And so it was really helpful to have a car, but she also is gets her friends to go on adventures. So she takes them on, like she'll take them they have a special place by the river where they go, and they get there early so they get a good place on this dock and can sit and chat and daydream and everything. And so she never, I don't know, she has never had any problem with it. And the campus itself is just gorgeous. It's just, when you walk around it, I could walk around it for a long time, and there's all these beautiful little corners, and the landscaping and everything's gorgeous, and it's pretty nice environment. So, and then you have all of the extra things in Portland too, like Multnomah Falls if you drive out of Portland, or you can drive to the coast in a couple of hours, or like I guess it's like an hour and a half maybe. So um
Totally agree. I think we have a Griffin's older sibling is at USC, so totally big school, and she still ends up with a smaller group of friends. Do you know what I mean? So like if you think about Reed as a sort of microcosm, it's never been limiting. And same thing, Griff has a car there, and they go on Friday night dinner outings somewhere different in Portland every Friday with a group of friends and just explore that way. It's fall break right now, so they've gone camping somewhere, not even sure where, but they've gone camping, and I just got a text that they were bushwhacking for a couple hours this afternoon at their happy place. Um, Yeah, no, it's been really amazing for them to have that experience of that closeness of community. And I think also the one thing I will say, as Griff did say, they were a little bit worried about dating everybody in their class. Like that was that was their one worry. Like, what if they run out of people to date? Because it's not just that you're like you date this person, but then that person's friends know you. So said, I said, babe, there's worse problems to have, I guess. But yeah, maybe you should think about that. Just make sure you treat everyone kindly. And they said, of course, of course.
Never even thought of that, but that's a good
Yeah,
point.
that's the one limit to a small campus.
And also, if you end your relationship, then you have to see the person a lot.
That
because
is
it's just
very
impossible.
true.
You know
That
what?
But
is
then
one.
also, if you're in something, you run into people. If you do something that's exciting on campus, other people see you, and you just go to get your lunch, and someone says, "Oh, I saw you in this," and so it's where that would never happen in an enormous in a school with a big population. So
I'm very curious about like, just like, we have families from all over the country. In fact, 95% of our students are from outside the state of Oregon. I think we have the second fewest number of students from our home state. I think number one is Middlebury, with Vermont having only fewer student in-state. So with that, how do you feel about student, navigating going back home to visit during holidays, things like that? Like, is that pretty simple and easy for your students to get back home, or how has that been for your families?
Feel like so Annie is used to using public transportation here in Minneapolis, and so found it pretty easy to navigate in Portland as well, doing the bus and rail to the. She did that actually when she went to visit in April, so she figured out she went with my husband, and they did I don't remember what you call it in Portland. Is it the light? We call it light rail here, whatever the version of that is in Portland. And between that and the bus system, and they got to read and didn't rent a car, so she learned how to do that on that trip. And so between that and Lyft, she's doing that. She's going to take the Amtrak down to see some friends for Thanksgiving, and then it's an easy flight to Minneapolis. So it's far away, and of course we wish she were closer, but we know she's happy there, and we feel like Portland's an easy city to get to, if we need to get to her, or she needs to get to us.
Okay.
ours is a little trickier because we live in a smaller town, so we don't have our own. We have an airport, but it's one of the smaller airports, so we have to fly somewhere like Minneapolis. So it's a double flight. But we've basically learned that booking an early flight is the way to go, just because nowadays the airlines are a little bit crazy, and she's had really good luck with just leaving early. So, but it's not. I mean, that is a little bit tricky. Another thing about it is our daughter. She is very she does not like to ask, like, if she could leave at, like, if she could take her final early, or do her finish her course early, so she could leave earlier than like the Christmas rush or something, or the holiday rush. So it's hard, we're probably not the right ones to ask, because I don't know, like, I would imagine that teachers are pretty accommodating. If a student says, it's going to be like $300 if I fly today, and it's going to be, $500 if I fly tomorrow. So I don't know. She won't ask those kind of questions, because she always puts school first. So, which is probably a good thing. So I can't really complain about that. But so,
It
it is a little
is
tricky.
definitely a drawback, but you have
Yeah.
to factor it into all the other things.
Yeah. And she loves it there. So again, we don't have we wouldn't change it. We wouldn't do it differently.
Yeah.
I guess. Oh, please, Jenna.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that one of Izzy's requirements was that she wanted a school that was kind of within a few hours, and she wouldn't have to take the train, which Portland was great for that. I think that maybe it was reflective of being a kid who grew up in COVID times, but I think she was a little bit anxious about, okay, what if some disaster happens, and how do I get home, and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, in any case, it's very easy. She's also very comfortable taking public transportation. She takes the Amtrak, from Portland to Seattle. And at first I thought, oh, maybe she'll come home more often, but she actually doesn't. She comes home, for the breaks, but she doesn't come home really like in between. I think she has fun, staying, there on campus. But our son does, go to college over on the East Coast, and it is, it's expensive and it's pricey, so it's something to kind of take into account, as you're making those decisions. On the other hand, I also think it's a great thing to just be away from home. I feel like it's made him a lot more independent. He loves the fact that he's a gold member of Delta, and he like knows just, how to, kind of maneuver around the airports and travel, pretty easily on his own. So I think good and bad things from that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I guess the next question is, and if this relate to you and your child, feel free to chime in and ask your thought. But like, from what whether with your child or with their friends and classmates, like, what is your sense of Reed in supporting students who are genders non-conforming, who are non-binary, and what is the community like here for students who identify?
Sure, I can take that one. Griffin's non-binary, and that was absolutely one of the decisions we had to make about college at the time. It was better than it is now, but it wasn't great, and so there were pretty much wide swaths of the U.S. that we knew weren't going to be acceptable, where they might not be able to get the medication they need and the support they need. And Reed is amazing. Like, I really have to say. First of all, like when I went and talked to the friends, they were all talking about their Hinge profiles and how they ended up. This sounds like all my kid does is date. That's not true, but they were talking about how they were all some sort of queer, right? Even if it was just like straight, and that was, the new queer at Reed. But the HCC, the health center, has wonderful therapeutic support, has wonderful medicinal support, and just in general has been a great resources for honestly anything that you have medically going on. They've just been a fantastic resource. But the student body is so accepting, and everybody honestly is so fluid and so gosh, when you'd walk across campus, you would never even assume anyone's gender, right? I mean, you might assume like, oh, that's the person with the blue hair, or that's the person with the purple hair. But you wouldn't necessarily assume a gender. And so I think that there is room for everybody at Reed. And I will say we've been a little nervous this fall about the whole National Guard thing and everything else. And I think that's true whether you're gender non-conforming or whether your skin color is a different color. The students really band together. Like Griffin was telling me that there's been a lot of support where students, if somebody has to go to the grocery store and they are a Black or brown student, then they just get like a whole posse of students to go with them. And they walk together to the grocery store so that nobody feels like they might be a target or anything like that, which I think is beautiful and just reflects how kind that population is there and how accepting it is. But I honestly think Portland has felt really safe for us. Honestly, they've been all over Portland. They've been all over the Pacific Northwest. It's been really lovely. And Reed all the time we get notes and sort of notices from Reed about what's happening in Portland as in general, how they'll approach any people coming onto campus, etc. And so it's more likely that your kid will be out there in one of the frog outfits or the unicorn outfits or whatever dancing than in a bad protest situation. So I think just to sort of reassure you, and I'm happy to talk separately to people, but it has been very much life affirming for my kid and for us as a family.
I'd say too that we have good friends who have a child who did not go to Reed and had a terrible experience with that issue. So that's something that was a data point for.
Yeah.
And Anna has a lot of friends who are gender fluid, and they're great friends, and they're all. I haven't heard her talk about any like horrible situations involving, like I haven't heard of anything negative that happened on campus. So it's great, reassuring.
Yeah, it's,
Thank,
it's an island of sanity in a country that's not entirely sane everywhere you go.
thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Jane. It's very, very thoughtful, experience and stories. I guess the next questions we have is on the academics, and Reed is famous for being a college that focuses on academic, rigorous academic. How do you feel, your students being supported? Like are they telling you that they always stress out? What are they telling you of their academic experience, and then how are they accessing the support system here, whether it's academic or non-academic support systems?
So Annie has said that she feels like it's academically challenging, but not overwhelming. She feels like the professors are really there to help, and that she feels like everyone is there to help her succeed. And when I have talked to her, she's taking a break by walking to the garden to pick squash, and then comes back and is baking bread with the kids in her dorm. Or there's things that they are doing as a community that I think I wish I was doing with kids, or not kids, well, maybe with kids, with people in my community. Like, they are taking care of themselves and taking care of each other. And so I think, yes, they're doing some hard things, and they are also taking care of themselves. Um, and I think that I will say the orientation week, the week one, the sessions that you all put on for the parents, just hearing all of the different ways that, even just, I will say, the registrar, what they had to say about how they were looking out for students and caring for students holistically. Every aspect of the college, I truly felt like was there looking out for our kids and supporting them through this academic journey. And so I felt that as we were driving away, I felt confident in that. And listening to Annie talk about her first 16th of college, I feel like she's really experiencing that. She's being challenged and she's learning a lot, and her curiosity is really on fire. And she feels like she's time to go to the garden and pick squash to bake. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I would add to that, when I went to college, I didn't know that I had an advisor, and our daughter talks about, well, I talked with my advisor, and it's a weekly that she has something to say that she talked with her advisor about. So, I mean, she hasn't always had a super easy time because it is extremely challenging academically. So you do have to kind of find your path. You want to be doing the thing that you're the best at in comparison to all the other things you might be doing. And so finding the places where your aptitudes lie, it can be challenging in an environment where there's some very high-powered people there. So she's navigated that with help from her advisor.
And she considers her advisor like a friend. I mean, she's like shared some of her correspondence where, like, is this like it's a good relationship that she has. It's a really positive and comfortable, where I feel like if she had some kind of problems, she wouldn't feel worried about bringing it up. She can speak openly and not feel intimidated.
Griff uses the accommodations a system as well. We had a call the summer before freshman year, and they just get a little bit of extra time on tests. And so they just go and tell the teacher, hey, I have this accommodation in place. Can I organize a place where I can stay a little bit longer when there's an exam? And they do that, and it's just so easy. But there's also writing support you can use. I think it's once a week per class. So it's not, I mean, there's writing support, there's tutoring support for math, physics, all the STEM type stuff. Um, I think honestly, it's probably hard to use all of it. There's so much support. And then there's also the Reed Care Team, where if your student finds that they're worried about another student, whether it's academic or personal or whatever, they can ask the Reed Care Team to come in and help with that. And the Reed Care Team will reach out and just make sure they're like, just do like sort of a wellness check. I think the one thing you have to watch out for on the academics is you don't get the grades unless you ask for them. So when Griff came home for Christmas after freshman year, I said, how'd you do? And they said, I have no idea. And I said, what do you mean? I have no idea. You know, it's like $90,000 a year. Like, please figure out how you're doing. Make sure that you're not failing out, that kind of thing. And they're like, well, and they go, Mom, you know, if I were failing out, they would tell me. And I said, okay, why don't you figure out how you did? And they did. I went and asked for their transcript, and now they know a little bit better to go and ask. Even in the harder classes where they feel that they're struggling a little bit, they go and they sort of say, "Hey, can you give me a sense of where I am? Like, I know you don't have a grade yet, but can you tell me, am I doing okay? Like, do I need a little bit more work? Do you want me to lean into something a little more?" And the teachers are fantastic about saying, yes, you know, I really would love you to analyze your arguments a bit more. So a couple more sentences of analysis, please, on these papers. And it's like, okay. So really, really supportive and accepting that it's definitely going to be. Now, if you are taking physics or math and dance, that those are hard. Those are harder programs. Like, but there are also there. So I do feel like there's probably a difference in the different majors. But that's it. Like you said, I think Ken, once you find the thing that you love, you're probably going to be better at it anyways.
I think too, one thing that was helpful for Anna is she's been doing like sort of comprehensive, she's at the level where she's navigating some of those hurdles, and she's had a good feedback from her professor, so she knows not to be in a panic about it. Like they've said, you know, you seem to be on track, and your strengths are, you're doing okay. So she hasn't had to be extremely, I mean, she certainly worries and she prepares, uh, which is, you know, of course you have to prepare. So, but she hasn't, she hasn't been, she has anxiety a little bit, and she hasn't had too much trouble with it.
Hasn't been too bad. I mean, Reed has a thesis, right? And that's not everybody that has that. So it's a cause of anxiety, but they're really helping her navigate that. So yeah, she's doing well.
Yeah, they set up a really specific schedule with dates and all of the meetings. So it really walks her through it all, like keeping on track for all of the different deadlines. So that really is helpful too. Instead of like, I think sometimes when you're in like a graduate program, even you can kind of get lost because they're expecting you to be meeting deadlines, and that you don't have as much close guidance with your advisors, which she appreciates there.
I just wanted to add that I did worry a little bit about it because Izzy was diagnosed with ADHD. And during high school, she didn't use the accommodations very much, but there were sometimes some like really stressful periods of time. But I think that some of the things that helped was, I think you have to keep in mind that this is college and they're not taking 6 or 7 classes, some of, you know, half of which she doesn't really care about. They're usually taking 4 classes that they picked that they are really, you know, invested in. And I think that that helps a ton. She did apply for accommodations, and having ADHD, she got it in past the deadline, but they were still very, you know, accommodating. She talked with her professors one-on-one about it. And I think the thing that really helped a lot was that she just really tried to be proactive about it. She tried to like volunteer ahead of time for things like, you know, leading a class discussion or doing other things, and, you know, preparing like somebody else mentioned. And then whenever she was stuck, you know, there's a ton of reading, you know, and a lot of writing, but whenever she was stuck, she just, I just think felt really comfortable just talking with the professors, kind of brainstorming about different things and getting ideas, and can kind of get herself unstuck with that. So, so it is, you know, it's a significant amount of work, reading and writing, especially, you know, in the field that she's in. But I think that it's definitely manageable, and I think she also has a good time.
Thank you so much. I guess the next question I have is, you know, maybe a tricky question to answer, is, but, you know, what, you know, from your immediate experience, like what is the drug culture that Reed like? I think just like the histories, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions about, like, you know, what's going on at Reed, you know, what, you know, from what you know, and from your experience, and from what your students you know, have shared with you.
They definitely party. I'm not going to say that they don't party. There was especially like at the beginning of the school year, I heard, actually it was about 4 weeks in, I heard, okay, well, the first 3 weeks were like a pretty long party, just like everyone was so excited to be back together. But now we're down to schoolwork again. So the party scene has sort of leveled, gone down. Um, it is definitely drugs and alcohol are on campus. They are on every campus. So I don't think that this is a Reed specific problem. Your kids need to be smart about it. It seems at Reed they're very balanced with like what they want to do with their intellectual life and their extracurricular life, etc. Doesn't They'd rather do those things than party. But you do need to be smart about it, and you do need to talk to your kids about drugs and alcohol. I think the best thing about it is that there's zero pressure, right? Like there's kids that are absolutely sober, there's kids that are absolutely not sober, and there's kids in every sort of in between. And I think everybody's just really happy. And you can just as easily go to a house party to see a band as you can to go out and try to drink, right? Because most of these kids are not. I also like the thing about the campus safety officers are there to help. They're not there to punish, which I think is a really productive atmosphere. So there's a zero, I forget what you guys have a word for it, but it's like if you have a problem, you go find campus safety and you know you're not going to be like kicked off school for it, right? So they want you to come and get help. So I don't think that that's ever happened, but at least in Griffin's experience, but I'm sure it's happened at some point, right?
Yeah, and Izzy doesn't drink or use any substances. That's kind of like been her choice, I think, with her ADHD and some other anxiety and stuff. I think she has decided that just doesn't work for her, and she's never really done that. And she feels completely comfortable, being at Reed. And I think that I think she's where it's there. Her friends, may drink alcohol or do other things, but so far, anyway, it hasn't ever been a problem, and she's never felt pressure to do something that she doesn't feel comfortable with. I think she was also an orientation leader this past fall, and she and a friend, I think, staffed the so kind of as one of the substance-free like movie nights. And at first, she was like, "Oh, is anybody going to show up?" But she was very pleased that there were actually like quite a few people who kind of showed up just to kind of have fun. And I think it's a supportive atmosphere that way.
And for Anna, she didn't really a lot of kids where we live party in high school too, and Anna did, and our daughter did not party at all in high school. And I think she's had like a good transition to like hanging out with her friends, and they party, but they don't sort of binge party the way that might happen in like a Big Ten university or like a big where you hear about the whole emphasis on the night is getting drunk or something. So that I've really appreciated, that it's more of a like social use as opposed to I don't hear about people partying hard, which is reassuring to me.
Yeah, I think it's consistent too with the general stress on diversity at Reed, where people are more mindful, is my impression, that because there's diversity in everything, people choose their own path there. Whereas we live in a college town in Iowa, and there's not that diversity. It's you go to the bars and get drunk, and that's what they do because that's kind of what everybody's doing.
Yeah, they have a bar crawl where everyone has a T-shirt
But
of
I'm
the whole
sure they all
purpose.
go down to.
You pay a certain amount, and everyone goes in, and that's their purpose.
So there may be less in the way of drugs, but there may be more in the way of just a culture of drinking alcohol without really making the choice to do so yourself.
So Annie, again, she's just been there a very little time compared to the rest of you, but what she told me in regards to this was she's never felt less pressured in her life. So feels like a very safe place for her.
Thank you. We have a question that basically asks, how does Reed support students with wide-ranging intellectual interests who want to explore a lot of different disciplines, across fields? And from your introduction, we have a lot of current Reedies who, from your children who are doing very different things. If you could talk about it, and if your child is still undecided, like how are they navigating, the academic when they're still figuring out what they want to study, if you have an undecided child?
Anna, she was very specific when she started school before she went to Reed that she wanted to teach calculus in high school. That was her goal. And so she may still do that. And she is doing her math degree and she's added dance. And we don't know if she'll still do that. I guess I'm not really answering the question. I think though that did feel like she would be able to, I mean, she was able to change course. So even though she was decided and then she shifted, it worked fine for her. Which was nice to know that she wasn't like all the way through like 3 years of math and then she wanted to add dance and she was still able to do that. So that was really great because I think she would have been frustrated if when she realized that she wanted to and she couldn't, she would have been a bit frustrated.
That's true.
Yeah, you hear all of our students here have 2 interests at least, right? So, and that's probably just the ones that rose to the top, not all of the other ones. Griffin we were talking about this before you all came in. Griffin was afraid to do a double major because then you have to do 2 theses, right? And that's the scary part. But you can absolutely join them together. It's like you make a proposal and you're suddenly an interdisciplinary major and you can join things together. Gina, wasn't like yours was history and comparative race or something like that? Like, so there's already a couple of interdisciplinary majors that you can enjoy, or if there isn't one that is your special sauce, then you can create it.
Yeah, Izzy kind of went in thinking she might be an English major, and then after taking like a couple of history classes, decided that that was really what she was more interested in, and really got a chance to talk with the advisor for the history department, who, after kind of talking with Izzy for a while, said, "You know what? I think what might be a better fit for you is actually the comparative race and ethnic studies major, which is an interdisciplinary major." And so that's kind of where she's, leaning right now. And she's not a double major like some of the your other kids there, but I think she's still enjoyed like participating in some of the other things that that Reed has to offer. She was a dancer, kind of in high school, and she's continued to take some dance classes, at Reed. So I think that there's kind of like a wide variety of things that people can participate in.
Thank you. I know we're running way past the hour mark, so I'm really grateful for the 4 panelists who are still here, and we have maybe like 3 or 4 questions. If it's okay with you, I love to just get those questions out, and I guess these 2 questions are related somewhat, but A is, how has your student been able to explore and take advantage of what Portland has to offer? Like, what are they engaging in off campus outside of Reed? And given the current political situation, like, do they feel at all unsafe, going to the downtown areas or, being off campus for any reason as well?
I loved that that you ended the orientation week with there were off-campus experiences that students could sign up for, and so there was a wide range of different things. And so Annie chose it was coffee, ceramics, and yoga. And so with a group of, I think it was like 20 kids, they did yoga in the morning, and then they went into downtown Portland and did ceramics and went to different coffee shops. And there was a whole bunch of different kinds of experiences that first years could sign up for. And the whole idea was to get out and to get to explore different parts of the Portland area and other areas around around Reed. And I think so there was a very intentional effort to help students get out. And I don't know if that's something that you do every year, but it was a great way for folks like our family, and it wasn't a part of it, but Annie, who had really no familiarity with Portland at all. And so I know she actually has gone back now to some of the coffee shops that she's been to, and she has felt comfortable, and she's intentionally gone back to downtown and explored and used the places that she went to from that first experience as a starting point to get out and to explore some more. And she has felt safe doing that.
What are the required PE courses? So you have to take 6 quarters of PE. Sounds harder than it is. You can be volunteering at a local middle school as a PE credit. But one of the things was climbing. And so Griff and a bunch of people went to different climbing gyms all over Portland, and that was their PE credit. Great. Awesome, right? Also, if you have a friend, somebody mentioned thrifting. There's so many fun vintagey neighborhoods and thrifting spots all over Portland. There is probably a thrifting trip every weekend, I'm sure, because somebody in your crew will have a car. It's super easy to have a car on campus. It's free. It's easy to park. It's, et cetera. So even just going out for dinner. And then, of course, the music scene. So on campus and off campus. On campus, there are 5 ensembles that you can be a part of. And I think it's a question, like, even if you're not in the music major, and if you're in an ensemble, you can also use the practice rooms, which is great. But then there's also so many concerts in Portland that are just fun to go to. So the kids go out and listen to music all the time.
One thing that today I got a text from Anna, and they have a thing called roaming Reedies, where I didn't even know about this, but the one that they did that she sent me today was they had made a video of 4 Reed students who went to on a hiking trip to Multnomah Falls. And so they encourage that, and they share the information of that, and they talked about how to get there. So they drove to a parking lot, and they took a shuttle up to the falls, and they talked about like the different choices of like how far you could hike and how challenging it was. And they said they didn't make it all the way to the top, but then they stopped for they went all and had like smoothies or something afterwards. So that was one thing that I thought was really cool. And the other thing is we're actually flying to Portland tomorrow, and she has a whole itinerary, and part of it is visiting her favorite haunts on campus again and having lunch with like her boyfriend and friends. But part of it is going to her favorite places off campus. So we're going to like to her favorite place for pho, and um, other, her favorite food trucks, and to a place for karaoke. So, and then she also has taken public transportation to visit friends in like Seattle. So she not only left Reed campus, which I was worried in the first semester that she was going to spend her whole 4 years just on campus, but she totally, as she got comfortable with being there, she branched out and went places like Seattle. So had a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, Reed is in a really nice neighborhood. Woodstock is just very walkable and just lots of, kind of neat things there. I also really like the fact that I think last year, Izzy, I think there was a church and a food bank kind of like in the neighborhood as well, and she volunteered there. Which was kind of interesting to me. I didn't expect that, and she just kind of had told me about it kind of like after the fact that they were doing it. So I think that it's a good neighborhood, and there's just it's pretty residential in a lot of ways, and there are lots of opportunities to kind of get integrated, into the neighborhood as well as, greater Portland.
All right. One final questions, well, maybe 2 questions, but what types of personality would you say your kids are, and how do they find read? Like, and this is not be generic. If they're extrovert, introvert, somewhere in between, how do you think they have adopted? How have they adapted at Reed, regardless of their personalities?
I think Reed's everyone. I wouldn't worry about that there's a archetype of a Reed student, except for maybe intellectual and curious. and kind of a dork. Let's be honest, all the things we've said are like their kids are sort of like dorks in the hippest possible way.
I couldn't agree more. Um, Actually, let's do one final question. This is actually like how have your kids liked the food in the dorm on campus? Like, what was it like for them to live in the past few years? And any complaint or any recommendation about the food on campus?
Izzy loves the grilled cheese and tomato soup. That's like her go-to. We've definitely had that when we visited. I think she likes the fact that there's kind of like a wide variety of different kinds of foods and also things that are healthy, things that she's not vegetarian, but she doesn't eat necessarily a lot of meat. And, she appreciates that there's kind of those options there. I think now that she's in her second year, she's kind of like feeling like, oh, maybe, I want to try some different things. And, she definitely has some stuff that she cooks like in their kitchen in the dorms. And I think that that's something that is also a fun thing for them to, just kind of do together as well.
Dorms are A+, food is like solid B+, I think would be the reaction.
It's also nice that they have a point system so that they can like save up their points and use it for different things at different times. So it's not like you get a certain amount of something, and if you're not there that week, or if you don't feel well, or you're just not, I mean, it's just really flexible, the point system for the way that their cafeterias work.
Yeah, Anna eats in the dorms a lot. She cooks a lot, and she eats out of restaurants a lot. So it's a real mix of different things. And we've had the food there. It's pretty good.
Can I just make a quick comment just about the other part, just about extroverts or introverts or, other kids? I remember once when we were at a parent event and we were talking with another set of parents, and they said, oh, your kid will probably recognize my kid because he wears a cloak, all over, campus. And so I mentioned that to my daughter, and she was like, oh, there are a couple of, people who just wear cloaks. And so it was like not a big deal. There are some people who wear a cloak, some people who don't. And I feel like that's just kind of the general ethos of the place, that there's just a lot of different kinds of people and you're free to kind of do whatever you like.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, this is a lot. This is so much fun. Thank you so much. I prepared a bunch of questions that was completely useless. I'm so glad we have a fantastic panelist, but we have a fantastic group of audience who has great questions. If you know someone who missed this, we will upload this to our YouTube, and then share this out with families later. Again, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Ken and Jane. Thank you so much, Sheena. Thank you so much, Jenia. Really appreciate spending with like over an hour to talk and share your students' experience. This has been so wonderful. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you again so much.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
take
luck.
care, everybody.
Your kids will be fine wherever.